So everybody, welcome indeed to this very, very special program with Marty O'Donnell. Marty, it's so exciting to have you. Ben, who is our musical director, and I, who founded gamechoir, are so excited to have you with us. We speak to you from England, and I know you're in the USA. What a
Yes,
wonderful thing that Zoom is that can connect us like in this way. It's a deep honor to have you today.
with just the slightest milliseconds of delay, but we're all used to that slight delay, which we could get over. But I'm in Las Vegas, and this is a great pleasure and honor to meet both of you and participate in whatever way I can with this amazing thing that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Marty. And it is a huge pleasure to meet you because, of course, the Halo theme is just iconic. I was just thinking before we sat down for the chat, the first time I heard it, I got an Xbox. It was a couple of years after they came out because they were very expensive when they first came out. But I remember it came with Halo, and that was one of the big things. It was the launch game. And I sat down, I put the disc in, and I turned it on. I was all ready to just mash that start button and jump straight in. And that chant started. And I remember my thumb just stopped. And I listened, and I remember thinking, I've never heard a choir in a computer game before. And I mean, I guess that's my first question. What was your thinking behind using this, what is frankly an ancient art form, to symbolize this kind of futuristic game world?
Well, I've been doing game music for by that point 93, only a couple of years really. Our first game that we shipped was 97. And because I have a master's of music composition from USC, and I grew up with classical music, and I was in a rock band. My plan was to be a rock star. That didn't happen. But I had this dual life of classical music and rock and roll, and progressive rock especially. And my dad was a disc jockey and jazz guy. So I had a very varied musical background. And when I started doing music for games, I just felt like the music, it would be so easy in the late 90s just to dip into more genres because nobody seemed to be doing it. And I remember thinking, the kids are listening to the music on these games, and they're getting such a narrow, uh feast of nothing, of like a very narrow window of music genres. And I thought this will be really easy. So one of the first games I had solo cello, and then orchestral stuff, and like I knew I could do anything I wanted to, and it would immediately just be different to the ears of the kids. And I thought, boy, it'd be great to just give some nice music to these kids who are playing the games, and maybe they'll get more interested in music in general. So by the time I got to do the Halo score, it was, I knew I wanted to do something that would be different. I knew it was sci-fi, but like with sci-fi, you can do anything. There's not a specific genre you have to do. And for me, it's always been, what is the story we're trying to do? What is the atmosphere we're trying to create?
Yeah.
And my friend Joe Staten, who was the writer for Halo at Bungie, I just said, okay, we got to do this trailer. I have a weekend to come up with something. It's gonna be shown with Steve Jobs at Macworld. What is the emotional picture we want to paint here? Because I didn't have any video to go with yet. I just had some vague concepts that they were going to be working on. And he says, well, it just needs to feel ancient, epic, and mysterious. And I'm like, okay, got it. Ancient, epic, mysterious. And so on the car on the way over to the studio where we were going to start working on something, I'm like, well, ancient, that's Gregorian chant. Boom, done. That's why I did that. And so I started thinking of melodies. I immediately went to the easiest chant melody scale, which is Dorian, and I started singing Dorian scales and then Dorian melodies. Well, I'll give you this because you guys will appreciate this. Because I was a jingle composer up until I started working on games, I knew how important a hook is, and I thought, well, this is my opportunity to get a Halo hook.
Halo hook
In the very opening melody. And I'm like, okay, my composition teacher always told me about find good melodies, figure out why they're good. One of my favorite melodies is Yesterday. Yesterday, da 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 da. And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, Dorian, da 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 da. So it's like it's not yesterday, but I'm using the
Yeah.
template shape. Da 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 da. And I mean,
Wow.
I'm creating this slightly faster for the podcast than it happened in the car. But I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it wasn't much slower in my I was under pressure, and that's how quickly I came up with that melody. With thanks to Paul McCartney, who I
That's
ended up
amazing.
meeting. I ended up working with him years later, but it was
Wonderful.
just like I had one low point and one high point. I had four sort of irregular phrases.
Well,
And I knew what Gregorian chant was because when I was at getting my master's at USC, I was in the early music ensemble, and I played bass Renaissance flute, and I played recorders, and I was in the choir that sang, Gregorian chants. So I had studied Gregorian chant, so it was always something I knew I could just go to if I ever needed to, which, believe it or not, I'd already done on some commercials. And so the
well,
original 5-voice choir for Halo in 1999 was me and my partner Mike and 3 jingle singers who had just been in my studio doing Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. So that's
well,
the monk choir.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah.
I know what you mean about, now you say it, that there's a little moment in the second phrase of the Halo hook, which is now what we're gonna have to call it, where it just pauses. And now
Exactly.
you say it, it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Genius. Absolute genius.
well,
Not genius, just desperation.
talking, Marty, about your Gregorian chant singing, we have recorded the chant in separate upper and lower voice parts with a professional choir here in the UK who are wonderful, amazingly talented singers.
Wow.
And Ben is going to teach the music to everybody that comes along to our YouTube, gamechoir YouTube channel on the 10th of July at 1900 hours UK time, which I believe will be 11 o'clock in Californian time. Is Las Vegas Californian time, or are you 1 hour?
We were in the same time. Yeah. West
Same
Coast time. It's Pacific time zone. So yeah, probably 11 sounds right.
And we would welcome you to come along to that session, Marty. And I mean,
Oh, I would love to. Yeah.
We hope it to be the biggest gathering of Halo people, Halo singers that the world has ever known.
Wow. Now, are you doing just the 4-phrase monk chant, or are you doing
just the chant? Just
okay?
The chant.
So monophonic, but in octaves.
Yes, and with a drone, with a simple,
interesting,
with just a single drone in octaves. So we'll have the lower note as well for the basso profundos.
Excellent.
To just give it a bit of woof.
Now, I hope you're doing it in E Dorian. Are you?
Yes, we are. We're doing following your original. Now, as we're talking about the theme itself and about people singing it, I mean, it can't have escaped your notice that the theme has become, it sort of had a bit of a resurgence in recent years, but with nothing at all to do with a sequel to the game. It started out with these guys singing it in bathrooms. Have you seen this?
Well, not only have I seen it, but I was just within the last couple of months, I was invited, since we now have moved to Las Vegas from Seattle. We've been here a little while, just a couple of years, and the Las Vegas Academy of the Arts asked me to come and speak to the kids there. So it's high school level kids, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. But they have to audition to get into this academy. And so I went to speak to them, and it was so great. They were so knowledgeable and amazingly talented. Like I'm looking at like 16-year-olds saying, "Do you guys even know what Halo is?" And all the women and men were like, of course, we love Halo. We play Halo. And I'm like, wow, a whole new generation of youngsters playing Halo. And they knew everything about the music. And then at the end, they said, you realize it was our school where the boys went into the bathroom and sang that thing that went
Right.
viral. And I'm like, I did not realize that. But they said none of those boys are here anymore. They all graduated like 3 years ago because like time has passed. But yeah, like apparently it was Las Vegas Academy of the Arts that did the original boys' bathroom Halo chant, which took off, and then started this whole trend of different people just going into caves and
Yeah.
churches and
Silos, all
tunnels
sorts.
and just singing.
Yeah.
And I just love it.
Wonderful.
I love it. Yeah.
I mean, just for you as a composer, it must be amazing to see it going viral. But for me as a conductor of choirs, and I know for Mark as well, one of the things, and I'm sure you understand this as a musician, is when you have a choir, you might have 50 sopranos, you might have 100 altos, you might have 3 tenors and 2 basses, and trying to get particularly young men to sing anything sometimes is a real challenge. But they'll all sing Halo. They'll all go in. And do you have any thoughts as to why that could be?
Well, number one, I think it's a good melody and it's singable.
Yeah.
But that's like the baseline, right? You want to have a singable melody that is not hard to teach. Number two, I got this melody hooked up with like the most popular Xbox game of all time. Like it was the right melody in the right place at the right time. And there was nothing nerdy about playing Halo. Halo was a cool thing to know, a cool thing to do. It was a great game. It was a great product. And so all these teenage boys were cool playing Halo. And they couldn't get away from my monk chant. Like you said, I made sure that chant was right as soon as you inserted the disc. The first thing you was going to hear was my monk chant.
Oh yeah.
And every time you paused it, it was going to go back to the menu screen. I had all this nice menu music, which always starts with the solo monk chant. And I designed it that way. I just thought it would be nice. But I think what happens is with the hours and hours of multiplayer games, especially that these teenage boys played, and girls too, it was a pretty co-ed kind of experience. But I think they all would start singing along, and suddenly it wasn't a weird thing to sing. It's hard for boys to sing during that period of time when their voice is changing and they're embarrassed about their voice. So many people, especially boys and teenage boys, are just embarrassed about changes going on in their bodies and their voice and everything else. And to be able to just be relaxed, this is my opinion, this is my theory, I don't know if it's true, but to be relaxed with your friends playing a cool game and singing at the top of your lungs this chant, I think just sort of broke the ice. People got comfortable doing that, I think.
No, that makes perfect sense. I remember sitting with, no, honestly, because I was in my early 20s when I was first playing it, and sat in my room here, in bean bags. Everyone had their own controller, and someone would say, "Pause! I've got to, go to the kitchen," and on would come that chant. And from the kitchen, my friend who's never sung a note in his life, oh, and we'd all then start. And you're right, it's cool, but it's also because it is so unpretentious. It's as you say, it's a good melody. There's no lyrics to worry about, so you can't get the lyrics wrong. And because it's also it's so stylized and so unlike anything else people would be singing, it's okay to sing it and have fun with it.
Yeah.
But in doing so, it's that earworm. It goes in and it stays.
Yeah.
And no,
well, that's my commercial jingle background. I just figured that any product that's going to be out in public, if you can hook a melody up to it and have the melody be part of the experience, it's 9/10 of the job. It's like, I know I could flip that melody on at any point and either bring back memories or nostalgia or just the emotions that people felt when they first heard or whatever. All that stuff would come flooding back because, you know, melodies are very much like smells, right? I mean, as soon as you get a smell, you're transported back to a time when you first smelled something, grandma's pie in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
I knew this is what melodies can do. I mean, melodies are incredibly powerful. So I don't want to sound like I was manipulating. I just understand that this works.
Nobody, but as a composer for game music, I mean, it, as you said, it was still quite a new thing to be recording sound for games. I think the PlayStation had only been out a few years, and they had CD soundtracks. I remember that being a huge deal on the Dreamcast, and the Xbox therefore was the first of its generation. And you're right that the chant comes back at various, not just at the beginning and in the pause menu, but at various key moments in the story, you know, to evoke those emotions. I mean, what was it like kind of being at that cutting edge of game music back then?
Well, the funny part is when you're on the cutting edge, you don't think you're on the cutting edge.
Yeah, no, I know that.
You just, in hindsight, you happen to realize, oh, I guess that was sort of a cutting edge thing. But there were many people, you know, all my friends and competitors and other games, everybody was trying to do something new and cool. And I remember I didn't really get into doing music and sound for games until, you know, I had done a whole career in TV and film and commercials. And by 1997, I thought I had missed the boat. I really thought, oh yeah, I missed it. But I'm going to get in now and try to do my best. I worked on a couple of games, Riven, which was the sequel to Myst, and I worked on Myth of Fallen Lords and Soul Blighter and Oni. And so Halo was a few years into my career with games, but I kind of thought I had missed the golden age. But one thing I did know was, oh, this is interesting. The technology is getting better. I wasn't really interested in doing music for games when it was going to be 8-bit MIDI files and 8-bit sound. That was just too, I'm like, oh, that's low fidelity. I can't do that. My ears can't handle it. But as soon as the 16-bit stereo, I was on the cutting edge of that technology. And so when I realized I could do real recordings of real sound effects, of real, you know, actors, I could hire actors who I knew in Chicago. I worked with actors all the time, and singers and players. Like I thought, oh, this is great. We can actually put basically high fidelity audio onto these games now. So I didn't think of it as cutting edge. I just thought of it as, oh, this is great. We have this we can do it this way. And then you could put a lot of content in and you could do what you were used to doing for films. And that's what we did. And it was just sort of the next logical step. I wasn't thinking we're breaking new ground. It just was next logical step.
Marty, I remember so well, we would all fill those discs to the brim very, very quickly with graphics and music. But just briefly to explain how this project will work is that Ben will teach the chant to everybody that comes along to the YouTube stream. We will then invite people to record their own voice wherever they are, in whatever country they are. We have people from Thailand, from Australia. Yeah,
that's it.
That's it. That's exactly right, Marty. And then they put that into Dropbox. We put them all together in the studio, and we will replay it to everybody in a live YouTube concert stream.
Wow!
And we are just so excited because it will encourage, as Ben and you were eloquently saying, you know, younger people to sing, to take part, to be together, even though they're not in the same room.
Yeah,
and you know, it's very exciting.
Well, you know, Ben, and you know this too, and this is something, my wife has her master's in choral conducting. And as a matter of fact, you see her in one of these old documentaries on making Halo. I think during the Halo 2 time period, I had her come in and conduct a bigger choir. So it wasn't just me and 3 jingle singers. It was an actual big choir in Seattle. And we sang the next version of Halo 2 choral music. And she's conducting that. So, but one thing that Marcy, my wife, and I have always talked about is the human voice. There's nothing more powerful than the human voice. And I don't think there's anything more powerful, even musically, than the human voice. It just immediately speaks to people on such a visceral, emotional level. So any chance I would have to sneak a voice in, there's so much music in Halo where it'd be 2 o'clock in the morning and I'd have a track that I was recording and mixing. And I'm like, you know what this needs? Just needs a little human voice over the top. So I'd get the microphone out and I would just sing, sometimes falsetto, just to get that human connection. And I know how powerful just hearing a human voice is, even on the top of lots of synthesized stuff. Human voice is so powerful, and singing together in community is huge. And like, especially I think during the COVID time period.
Yes.
These choral Zoom calls and stuff have just been such a good way to stay connected. I think it's wonderful. So I don't know how you feel about, obviously you love the human voice too, but
yeah,
I mean,
well,
it
as
just
I
connects.
It does. And as I said, when I put that disc in and out came the chant, that was it honestly, it grabbed my attention like nothing else. If it had gone straight into the da 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 da,
yeah,
I'm afraid I would have just pressed start and gone straight into the game. It was unusual, it was powerful, and it spoke to me. As the gamer, and which I know is kind of what you wanted, and it really does work, and it so clearly works because people are still singing it and loving it decades later.
Yeah,
to the point that we're going to get thousands of people coming to sing with us on this project.
I mean, here is Halo, Ben and Marty, going to the next level. I mean, here is everybody around the world being able to take part rather than having to go to the bathroom. They can.
Actually,
yes.
that's the important thing to say to anyone watching from gamechoir. When you record, please don't record in the bathroom.
Right, keep it
Please
dry.
Don't. Keep it nice, dry sound. Lots of curtains, not in the bathroom. We'll add the bathroom later. You'll add the
reverb. The same with us. I mean, we recorded that just raw in. Although I remember when we had the headphones on, I always like to have reverb, so I could tell how we were, how our voices were reacting in the reverb. But you recorded, you recorded the voices dry, and the reverb was either recorded on another channel or added later. But I'd like to hear it while I was doing it, but never. Everything was always dry.
Yeah,
that's the right way to record.
It is absolutely. And so when it comes to this project, I mean, you're so very, very kind, not just to speak to us today, but to support the project as you have done. Can we ask you, what are you looking forward to when this is all put together?
Oh, wow. Just to know that this many people around the world actually know the melody and want to participate. That's just amazing. It's just, I mean, it just, the one thing I can say, the one claim to fame that I can have is like, I said this to somebody the other day, is like, I don't know how many times the Halo chant has been heard or hung or sung, but I was the first one in the world to actually sing it in the car on the way to the studio. So how many thousands of millions of times? It's like, but I was number one. I did it the first time.
You were number one. You were number well. I'll tell you something.
And I want to be. I hope to participate. So I want to be.
Marty,
part of
please do. Oh my God, that would be so amazing.
And I'll tell you something, Marty. I'll make a deal with you. If you're kind enough to sing for us on this chart. I mean, I presume you know how it goes. I presume you've heard it. I presume you know how it goes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
When it comes to mixing it, we'll stack everyone up in the studio. You will be track number one.
Okay. Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
Promise.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Not just for today, but for honestly inspiring so many people to sing. When we came up with gamechoir, we were wondering, what piece should we do? We were looking at all sorts of pieces. I spoke to actually the guy who's going to mix this for us, who's a brilliant engineer, brilliant young chap in his 20s. And I said to him, you know, I said, Connor, his name's Connor. Connor, you're our target audience. What piece would you sing? And he just said, Halo, straight away.
Okay, great. Wow.
Didn't blink, didn't take up, just said Halo. Me and my friends, we would sing Halo. And so, yeah, you've inspired so many people.
You have.
And it is honestly such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for
this is
talking
great.
for
And let me just, before you go, let me just say, it's so cool that the technology has advanced to the point where you can actually get thousands of people submitting things and have someone mix all of those voices into one mix. I mean, just, you know, 20, 30 years ago, you couldn't even conceive of such an idea. So this is great. I'm glad I'm still alive to see this happen.
Oh, bless you.
Well, so are we.
Yeah.
And I think for you as a, just to say, for you as a composer, I mean, it must be interesting to consider the possibilities of a global choir, potentially of thousands or tens of thousands.
Yeah, no,
each voice recording individually. You know, what's the next generation of game music going to sound like?
Exactly. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
Well, Marty, thank you very much indeed for spending the time with us today. We look forward to seeing you on the stream on the 10th of July which is 1900 hours UK time, which will be slightly different your time. But we look forward to it very much indeed. It's been a deep honor, Marty, and thank you for all your help and support.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark and Ben. This is a total pleasure. I love talking to you guys.
Brilliant. Thanks so much.